name is Meg Wager, and I'm Associate Director of Employer Partnerships and Outreach in the Career and Professional Development Center. Today's information session features our guest speakers from IBM. We welcome Jennifer Shufelt, who is Associate General Counsel, and Donald Cepiel, Class of 95, Vice President, General Counsel, Global Regulatory, Security, Privacy, and Data. Is that right, Don?
Yes, that's right.
Great. The discussion today will focus on the newly created Talent Incubator program in the New York area to educate and develop lawyers to serve the legal needs of IBM's business. For 3Ls, just to let you know, the 2023 attorney posting is currently now viewable on Albany Law Link for you, and that's position 35710. Okay, and with that, I'll turn things over to you, Jennifer, if you wanted to start the program. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Meg. And thank you all for taking time today to join us and to learn a little bit about what we are doing here at IBM. So my name, as Meg said, I'm Jennifer Shufelt. I've been at IBM, I guess by accident, 22 years. I started out my legal career. I was in M&A and securities practice at a private law firm for the first 5 years, and then moved over to IBM in 2000. One of the reasons I say it was by accident that I've been here for so long is because I have had so many different jobs within the company, and it's felt like, you know, each job has presented me with new challenges, new issues, new scope of work, new groups of clients that I've been supporting. So it's really felt as though I've had so many different careers already, but all within the family of IBM. So I feel very fortunate for that. And you'll find a lot of people who are in similar situations as I am. At the end of around this time last year, actually, I would say, I got a phone call from our general counsel, Michelle Browdy, and she asked me to start leading a new program within the law department. And what we have named it here is the Legal Talent Development Program. It's a mouthful, and as we do with everything at IBM, we have, you know, made it into an acronym, LTD program. So what she wanted me to do is really to set up a new, my mission, I guess, to say is really to recruit, educate, develop, and retain new talent for the law department. And I want a diverse set of talented lawyers and deploy them throughout the department, throughout the geographies, throughout the different business units, and to be thinking about, you know, how better to service our clients. And when I say client, obviously, when you're an in-house lawyer, your client is the corporation or the entity that employs you. But there are lots of different business units and human beings that make up that client. And so at the beginning of 2022, this year, I started my first recruiting. I started recruiting for the first class. And we have an inaugural class of 8 new lawyers. They are all 2023 grads, all from 8 different schools. Excuse me. And they started right after Labor Day. So they took the bar exam and then took some time to decompress and relax, and started here right after Labor Day. And so it's been really, I mean, it's only been 6 weeks. I think we're at the start of our 6th week right now, but it's been a real, you know, it's been crazy and fun and exciting. And I'm sure that they would tell you the same thing. And so there's been a lot of education, and there will continue to be a lot of formal education. It's kind of hard to, you know, beyond the first month or so, being able to get anything other than your computer working and how to spell IBM. That's about all we expect, really. No, but really people are starting now. As of last week, they've been put into some initial rotations in different sections of the law department, so that they can really build deep skills in certain areas, so that when they're done with this program in 1 year, they can actually go out into different parts of the department and contribute and add value. So there's a lot of training that needs to be done, a lot of network building that needs to be done. But you also need to the hope is that people will develop skills also, not just have a breadth of experiences such that they come out of the program in a year and can't contribute and don't know how to do something substantive within the legal field that our clients demand. So we're, kind of building the airplane as we fly, but it's really exciting and a great group of people. And so this year, with the luxury of time, I'm able to start recruiting earlier for the following year's program. My expectation and the model that I've built is that we would hire another 8 lawyers. Again, hopefully, I'd love to have the class assembled and complete and locked down before the holidays. But I think some of you heard me talking to Meg just at the beginning. I know that that's also during finals. So, we'll have some flexibility with the closing off of the applicant pool. I will tell you last year, also with being so behind the 8 ball, as you all know, as your 3 Ls, to be interviewing on campus and having discussions with students in the January to March timeframe, I was really kind of late to the party. But even being so late to the party last year, I had over 500 applicants for 8 slots. And so I was pleasantly surprised, and lots of, as you can imagine, lots of highly qualified candidates from a lot of different schools competing for the slots. But I'm hoping that this year we'll be able to get the timing down a little bit better, and then with the following year after, get it down to even more in line with what some of the other companies and law firms are doing. But we're getting closer. So that's kind of big picture what the program is, what I've been doing. I did before I switch and let Don talk about what he and his team do for the company, which is really important and I think really exciting probably for a lot of you, because I know that a lot of the students that I've talked to over the last year really like and are fascinated by the privacy and the cyber and the regulatory issues that are confronting the legal environment today. And all of that comes under Don. But I did want to mention, with the education and with all of the various groups within the law department, there are a few areas that are kind of off the table that I would not expect people to naturally feed into through this program that I'm discussing with you now. And those areas would be investigations, litigation, and probably our labor and employment section. I think those 3 areas are still areas where IBM does look to people who have been trained either in district attorneys' offices or law firms or so on for those kinds of niche skills, instead of training those up in-house. So I did want to make that clear just from an expectation standpoint. And I guess with that, Don, I don't know if you could take a few minutes just to explain your practice area and what the responsibilities you and your teams have.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks, Jen, and thanks for the opportunity to join you. I share Jen's history, and that I joined just a little bit before her, but I'm also sort of over 20 years at IBM, and I would say when I started in the late 90s, I didn't expect I'd be still here all these years later, and I'll sort of explain why that is. And now, sort of looking back, not surprising at all. Just for the context of folks from up on New Scotland Ave. So I grew up just outside of Albany. I went off to college at Hamilton College, Central New York, came back to Albany, and as Meg mentioned, graduated from Albany in '95. I took a role. It's a firm I just checked last night, still there, Cooper Irving. Their website, they claim to be the 2nd oldest firm in the country, back to 1795, which I didn't realize at the time. The Cooper in Cooper Irving, the grandson of James Fenimore Cooper, the author of Last of the Mohegans. So anyway, I did a little bit of digging just to make sure that firm was still there. But I worked there for 3 or 4 years right out of law school. worked for another Albany alum at the time, a couple of Albany alums, and most closely, it was Mayor Whalen. He was a mayor of Albany for a decade or so when I went to work for him. And from there, I was recruited into IBM. So we didn't have the formal program that Jen's talking about now. At that point, it was in the life cycle of IBM's hiring, where we were only hiring lateral, and we sort of left the notion of hiring right out of law school. I think it's come back full circle to now we are looking to hire out of law school, in part because there's a certain way that IBM handles things, and not having to retrain folks who maybe have gone off to a big firm and get so specialized in one particular clause or section of the tax code, or your first couple of years out, you'll probably find this soon enough. Even if you're doing a big deal job for a big firm, your role and responsibility is somewhat modest in terms of doing schedules and things. And so I went from having a small firm, it was a 30-person law firm, AV rated, having a range of things I can do, and that really served me well at IBM, where you do, as Jen mentioned, over your career, have the opportunity, not obligated, but have the opportunity to sort of move around and take on different roles within the department. We're a big tech company. Before that big tech moniker was popular. Been around over 100 years. When I joined, IBM was still selling PCs. We're not doing that anymore. At the time I joined, most of our revenue was selling hardware, so PCs, but also servers. We still sell mainframe servers. That's still part of our legacy. But now we are, as Jen will talk about in a little bit, we're sort of a cloud AI company. And so that offers sort of that next wave of new technology. And so again, we as lawyers, what you will learn is, part of the advantage of the legal role and the support is, if your clients internal are working on really cool things, well, then you get to deal with cutting edge, interesting issues. If it's sort of, if your clients internally are doing sort of basic, very, very basic contract issues, but you may not have as much of an exciting opportunity. So at least I found IBM over the 20 plus years, cutting edge, technology-based issues with a general counsel and legal department that encourages you the opportunity to work for a few years on one topic, build your skill set, and then take that to move to another role supporting a different client base on IBM. And at least the design point, and maybe Jen, you and I are examples of it, it does over the years give you a perspective about IBM's business and about the issues that are important to us that we could never really hire from the outside on that particular, so you build up a knowledge of the business and the legal issues and their risk tolerance. So that's where I joined IBM late. Like you, Jen, I didn't expect to be that long. My plan coming out of law school was to work for a few years and then go get my MBA. I had a sort of notions, and I considered I'm not sure if it still exists, the Albany Law Union sort of joint degree program. And but I went and started working and found I really liked the practice of law. And depending upon the type of law I was practicing, either in Albany or at IBM, I could almost have the best of both worlds, being at the table with the business leaders as he and she are making those decisions. So anyway, it's been a nice, been a long career for me. I probably had 6 or 7 different roles at IBM, all offering something unique and different from what I did before. And again, now, as Jen mentioned, my team, I have a team of about 30 or so lawyers worldwide. And so they're dedicated to this regulatory mission that I mentioned, and probably another 20, 25 who are in other of the 130 countries that IBM practices in, where we have business that are sort of they have a share of their time that work on my team's issues. And my team issues, we call it regulatory. Maybe that's not the perfect name, but it really is covering this continuing of issues around data, what's cybersecurity, data protection, data privacy, data governance, and artificial intelligence. And those are issues these days that are, by many accounts, the hot legal topics. They drive major enterprise risk for all companies, and if they don't, then they that they should know that they do. These are sort of big cyber, big enterprise risks. And then at least for IBM in our business now has moved away from selling mainly hardware into cloud services and around artificial intelligence. These areas are core to our business. So that's another nice thing, at least my patch. We're not a compliance function. We are a gearbox for some of the most important issues affecting IBM, and that could be security incidents and vulnerabilities. It could be policies and practices to ensure our clients and their employees and clients. We have data privacy practices. It is more and more a regulatory driven space. So, the days when I got out of law school, there were only certain companies who you would consider to be a regulated company. These days, whether companies realize it yet, there's such sort of a circling of regulations around privacy. You've heard in Europe, the GDPR, well, that wave has moved both east into Asia and it's moved west into the US. And most companies these days are heavily regulated, and it's only going to become more so. So that's another big area that we and my team try to keep an eye out for are the new regulations that are coming. And you have to hunt and find what those are. We have team members who assess what the law says, and then sort of the real magic for someone who's been around IBM from the base of their career onward is to try to figure out how to operationalize those requirements. It's one thing to read a requirement in a statute, it's another to understand the business and be able to help counsel our clients on how to comply. And then the way we try to do is not just comply as sort of a reactive notion, but using our collective expertise in these areas to make it a competitive advantage, a differentiator for us over other companies who struggle with the regulatory compliance. So I'll pause there. I mean, we can go into all sorts of questions. Jen, anything else you wanted me to cover? I think it's a little bit about who I am and what my team does.
No, I think that's perfect, Don. I suspect that based on the prompts that I got, Meg, I'm not sure that well, let's see if I'm going to be able to share my screen. Let me try. Oh, can you see it? Okay, good. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. That's mine. So Don talked a little bit about this and, alluded to this. And I know a lot of times when I talk to friends or neighbors or colleagues outside of IBM, a lot of times people do still have that notion that IBM's a hardware company. And this is, I think, we've been on a journey, certainly over the last 5 or 6, probably since we're always on a journey, right? But we've had some real crystallization, I think, and simplification of our strategic priorities as a company. And under Arvind Krishna's leadership, Arvind is our CEO, I think things have become a lot more clear. Certainly, it's easier, I think, for my teams to understand where they fit in IBM strategy and how what they are doing is relevant and important to the company. I think having work that is valuable to your client is something that really drives all of us, and it continues to become more and more important. But this is, I'm glad I can share my screen because this is a really nice encapsulation, a one-pager of what IBM's strategy is today. And Don already mentioned, we consider ourselves a hybrid cloud and AI solutions company. I think you can probably see my cursor here. I like to start from the bottom and work my way up on this chart because this is kind of, I would say, kind of the old IBM in a sense, but it's still a really critical, mission critical, and very important aspect of our business and our strategy. So it's the foundation, it's the building block of the rest of this chart, and it's the infrastructure. So it's all of the hardware, the systems, the cloud, and it's not just IBM. Like IBM now is really trying to be agnostic about certain aspects of companies' technology stack. We refer to this as the stack. Because we realize that not everybody is going to pick 100% IBM, from bottom to top. And so if we can get everyone kind of stuck to us in some ways, whether it's a systems integrator, a business partner, an alliance partner, a joint venture, or even sometimes competitors, if we're all, stuck together, we can make the pie bigger for everybody. So we start here with the IBM infrastructure. Then some of you may have read about IBM's acquisition of Red Hat. It was a 36 billion, Dawn, is that right? I think that's the number. $36 billion acquisition we made a couple years ago of Red Hat. And that's really IBM's, we're embracing this open and hybrid cloud technology. And so this is the hybrid cloud platform that we want everybody building software, building applications on top of this hybrid cloud platform with Red Hat, OpenShift, and Enterprise Linux. Then we go up to our software stack, and then on top of that, we have our consulting business too. So that's where the consulting business was really born out of a 2002 acquisition of PricewaterhouseCoopers Consulting, and so this now, for me, starting at IBM in 2000 to today in 2022, the business's strategy and priorities have really changed, but they've also really simplified, and you can explain it and you can understand it, and you can appreciate how the work that you do as a lawyer for the company crosses all of these pillars and really makes a big difference and does have an impact. One other thing I would say, and then I'd really love to hear some questions that you all have and leave plenty of time for that. One thing that in comparing and contrasting my experience as an M&A and securities lawyer at a law firm versus a lawyer within IBM, I had an undergraduate business degree. I did get my master's, but I got that in international relations because I had no liberal arts background and needed a break from all the crazy law students. So I did that simultaneously. I got that degree up at Syracuse, but I'm from Texas, so I went to University of Texas undergrad. Anyway, I have always had that business background and thought about getting an MBA, but figured that was more of kind of the same. So I've always had a knack for business and a passion for it. And so what I really enjoy being in-house is that in addition to providing legal advice, you bring a lot of business advice, business acumen, just you're a trusted advisor to the people that you work with, and you really get to see, see your work pay off. And like sometimes I tell people sometimes the best compliment that I've ever received from some of my internal clients is when they call me up and they say, I don't want your legal advice. I want your business advice. I want you to help me assess the risk in this situation. Tell me how to minimize it. Just bounce some ideas off, let's talk about and brainstorm some ideas together. And I really like that. And that's something that I wouldn't have gotten if I had stayed at a law firm. So with that, let me pause. Meg, do you have a normal format for a Q&A, or are there any topics you want Donna and I to hit that we haven't yet?
No particular format. Generally what we'll do is just sort of open the floor to any questions. I can monitor for any raised hands, or if anyone wanted to put a question into the chat, but it's such a small group, I think we could probably just sort of talk about things. Did any of the students here have any questions to start off? Aristide? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, it's Aristide. Hi, my name is Aristide Bishop. Sorry, I missed like the opening section, so I don't know how to say. Is it Mr. Cepiel?
Yeah.
Cepiel? And is it? I don't want to mess up the name. Is it Miss Shufelt?
Shufelt. Yes.
Okay. Nice to meet you guys. I'm actually excited that you guys. That we are having this, because before entering law school, one of the first jobs I applied to out of coming out of undergrad was IBM, but didn't get it. I worked at a firm for a bit, but here I am again, full circle, trying to do this. So I kind of missed a portion of the opening and introduction to the program throughout my, well, it would be 2.5 years. I'm graduating in December, So 2.5 years of law school, I've only worked in general counsel positions or like as clerks for general counsel teams. So how likely or how would that kind of help my chances of like getting an interview or just kind of getting my foot in the door at IBM?
So Aristide, thank you. And call me Jennifer, please.
Oh, all right, no problem.
So you're graduating in December, it sounds like, and the question is really, how would if you've worked in-house for companies over your law school and perhaps even before law school during your career, how would that impact your ability to compete with other candidates? Did I get that right? Yeah. No, I think it's a great experience. We have in the class that we have today, I would say about half of them had experience, either internships or externships during law school with companies. One was a big consumer packaged good company. Another was that she had experience in with a pharmaceutical company, and then a couple of technology startups are represented by the cohort that we have today. So I think any type of business, technology, IP, and privacy experience, that those are, I would say, substantive skills that are definitely distinguishing factors among the candidates that I've seen. And people have always asked, like, what makes a good lawyer? I think it's like, what makes a good lawyer at IBM? It probably is the same answer for what makes a good lawyer and what makes a good candidate for any position too. For me, it's just intellectual curiosity. It's so important to have an open mindset and to want to learn more and want to learn new things, because you just never really know what opportunities are going to present themselves, and to have that open mind and to be willing to try something new and something that's out of your comfort zone. I think that to me at least is one of the characteristics that I look for in candidates and also in lawyers.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If I could add, if you didn't mind me, Jen, jumping in, and that also,
please.
Everyone should call me Don. Also, I think the broad, from my perspective, a broad-based practice in skills are more compelling to me than if you were the very best working for AUSA on deep litigation. I mean, there's an intellectual rigor there, and you can write wonderful, fantastic. But at least the way we have our program run and the way IBMers succeed throughout the legal department, having that sort of broad-based perspective. I mean, we hire outside counsel if we need sort of absolute worldwide expert on this particular clause of the tax code, if we need it on this particular False Claim Act issue. So we have, we will hire out to outside counsel for that expertise, but we offer sort of the whole rest of it. So having that sort of broad perspective, I think, to me, is at least more interesting. And that's, or at least a little bit biased, that's how I came in, bringing to IBM a broad set of skills, having done some deal work, having done a little bit of litigation, having, being able to put it all together. Because in-house, as Jen said, you sort of have this mix of legal advice and business support, and having that context, that perspective can be helpful. It would certainly be helpful. I don't think Aristide, you mentioned what you were applying for. It's helpful, but far from required to have sort of a technical background. I was an economics undergrad. Probably some folks would be deceived that when I talk about the technology now. I've just been around it so long, you pick up plenty of what you need to operate successfully in IBM, even if you're not a computer science undergrad or you didn't come in writing your own patents. It's a spot where everyone can find a spot, even in it's probably the most technical area in my portfolio, in and around cybersecurity. You don't have to be a computer scientist. You don't have to know how to monitor, EDR on client systems to be effective in that. And having, we have our resources for that, but also having the perspective that, to me, is more important than a technical degree or any, extensive experience on particular things.
No,
If I could ask,
I truly enjoyed.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. I was going to say that I truly enjoyed your when you spoke about data privacy and cybersecurity, because I've been doing a good portion of that at the company I currently work for, and we just finished revamping the entire like information policy.
Mhm.
The entire information policy document for the company. So like I got excited when you started talking about it, but sorry, you can continue.
Yeah, no, that's great. I will say, we offer, again, a core to our business with the chart that Jen is showing, and 130 countries. I think I mentioned we probably have. It's not a state secret. Probably 1 million devices that are part of our network that we need to keep track of. We've been around for 100 years, so you think of all the sort of legacy technology. We're not out of the box company that just has 4 servers. So it's a complex operations worldwide. We have a complex IT infrastructure, and so there's a lot. Everyone on this call will, unless you go to a pure litigation route for an AUSA, companies that you go to work for will be spending more and more time on cybersecurity and privacy. Our newest mantra around the hundreds of IBM lawyers that we have is everyone is a privacy and security lawyer, because you really can't get along these days without having that foundation. And then my team really is at level 2, if you will, expertise, either because folks have come into IBM with their expertise, or through programs like the one that Jen's talking about. You've been trained up into how those issues are most relevant for our department. So again, I'm here because I'm an ALS grad, and I'm a full supporter of Jen's team, both offering her team opportunities to shadow, to sort of test out, is this an area right for you, and then also with a commitment to help train folks on these issues that are so important to IBM and individual careers.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for answering that. Thank you for the question. Asta, did you have a question?
Hi, yes, I did. Hi, my name is Asta Kataki. Hi, Dawn. Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for talking about like the privacy and everything. And IBM has played such a big role in my life. I went to Binghamton, and it's a birthplace of IBM, so surrounded by IBM always. I had 2 questions. The first one was, what does since you had one class of incoming associates right now, and the second one, what do you plan a daily life of an associate to look like? And I'll ask the second question afterwards. Thank you.
A day in a life. Well, so we've been doing a lot of education right now. And some of that is kind of what you would expect coming on board to a large organization. I mean, some of it is the kind of what I guess it's not monotonous, but it's the kind of the administration of selecting your benefits, making sure all of this kind of what I would say traditional onboarding. That was a lot, and computer stuff to make sure that you have the tools that you need to be successful. So once you get beyond that, then we start what I would say the big IBM education. So we've taken, we've gone to corporate headquarters in Armonk. We've gone to see the hangar. We have airplanes and helicopters, and we went to see that. We went up to Yorktown Heights to see the research facilities and to see the quantum computers, which was just really wonderful. So I think understanding the company that you work for is a big part of the initial phase. Again, so you start with kind of onboarding, traditional onboarding, then what is IBM? What's its history? What does it do? What does this one slide look like? And then we really start getting into the substantive areas of the law department. So I've had the senior leaders, like Don's peers, come in and talk to the team about what they do, what their teams do, so that the new lawyers understand who's who in the zoo, because it's hard. It's hard to figure that out. And then we've been doing a lot of trust and compliance training, a lot of ecosystem training, contracts and negotiations training, privacy training. The menu of selections is never ending. But having said that, I think, as you all can probably appreciate better than I can. Sometimes sitting around and listening to lectures is not the most efficient way to learn. And so this whole concept of experiential learning is something that's very important to me and to the team. And so they've started, I would say, like, if there's a scale, there was more kind of classroom, the necessary evil of classroom training to start, but then it starts kind of evening out a bit. And now people are also shadowing, doing projects. And as I mentioned, just this last week, I've put everybody into their first assignment. So they're, in essence, they're going to be an extension of somebody's team in the department. So there are 2 people who are going to be working in ecosystems. That's the team that handles all of like business. It's a very big, important focus item. You can kind of see that here. Anything kind of in gray is ecosystem, frankly, on this chart. So 2 going into ecosystem, 2 into Don's team, into privacy specifically, 2 into global markets, which is our customer facing transactional work, and then 2 into IP. And so there'll be extensions of those teams. And the 2 people that I put 2 in each, just so that there was kind of safety in numbers, and I guess, but they won't be doing necessarily the same project. They won't be working together on everything. They may have some projects together, but a lot of things separate so that everybody can build their portfolio of work, and get feedback from not just me, who they're probably already getting sick of seeing every day, but also all of the different assigning attorneys. And so there's going to start, my expectation is that there will be more like regular work and being included in those team meetings and, shadowing them, because you don't learn how to practice law in law school. You learn when you're given all the tools to be successful in law school, but you really don't know what you're doing until it's trial by fire in your first job. And I think probably any lawyer you've talked to has told you that. That's one thing where all lawyers, I think, can agree. So you don't really learn until you do. And so they're starting to do in a safe spot, right? And have the support of me, of Don, of all of the other lawyers here to be successful and to learn and to build skills. So that was a very long-winded answer, Asta, about what a day in a life looks like, but it's different. It's different depending on which sections they get put into, which sections they like. But I think overall, over time, the same theme is less learning, more doing, but always having that constant, support and reiteration of learning. Because I tell them, like where we are now, I was like, I guarantee you what you just learned went over your head. But in 3 months' time, once you've done something, now it's and we have the session again, it will make so much more sense. So much like everything.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful. And I definitely agree. I'm in a clinic right now, and I read about contracts, but then actually looking at a contract, I was like, wow, it makes sense now what the cases were about.
Exactly. I always laugh. I said, I would love to go back to law school now. And if I got to do it all over again, I would probably do constitutional and appellate work. I think it would be fascinating.
Right, definitely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And so now my second question, I think, I'm sorry, I have like 2 more now. So I had one following up yours is like, so is it on a rotational basis that associates pick what team they want to be in, or is it that they have a preference and they get put into that?
Well, so this is, how I mentioned the phrase building the plane while we're flying. We're doing a little bit of that, but that right now they're committed to this group that they're in through the end of the year. So they need to be there long enough, one, to convince the lawyers on Don's team to invest in the training, and so that they get to know the people and that they have real projects where they can learn real skills. Like you'll hear me say that over and over again. So there is some notion of like, I need to match up what they're interested in, what they're talented in, and what demand we have as a department for positions. So for example, Don, close your ears. But the M&A team has been doing this fabulous job of education, and they're just like all wonderful and approachable, and a lot of them are in person, and so now all 8 of the lawyers want to be M&A lawyers. And I'm telling them, I was like, we don't have spots for 8 M&A lawyers. so I mean, again, that's I'm answering your question by saying it's based on all of those factors. It's based on skills, interest, and demand. I would say those are the 3 primary ones. And as I mentioned to you earlier, there are certain, I mean, there might be a great litigation project, or there might be a great project in labor and employment, but I'm not focused on those areas as much, because I do think those are places where we'll still hire externally some niche skills.
Okay, thank you so much. Definitely, like, I agree. Like, you think you like something, and then unless and until you have given enough time to actually practice that, you cannot be certain.
Exactly. And some people might think they really are going to love IP, and then they get into IP and they're like, okay, I don't want to do this 100% of my time. But I've also said you do have to, it's important to have things, projects or positions, short-term positions that you don't like, because you do learn a different set of skills, and you do know with more certainty what you do like and what you're probably more talented in. So
yes, definitely, I agree. And the more time you spend, the better hang you get of it, and then you tend to like it more if you're better at it.
Exactly, which is important for jobs.
Right.
You have to like what you're doing every day, or else it's really hard to get out of bed.
Definitely, I agree. But thank you for that answer. And my last question, sorry guys, I promise. I just wanted to ask, so are you looking for, their openings are in Armonk right now, which is like, I think it's near White Plains and Westchester, right?
It is in Westchester, yes. And as we have all lived, the pandemic has changed things. Most of the 8, I live in the city, and 6 of the 8 live in the city. Although one is moving to the Bronx, so we'll have 7 of 8 in the city. But IBM post-pandemic provides shuttle buses from the city to Armonk, but post-pandemic, instead of doing it 5 days a week, we only do it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I have told that, the deal always has been, I wouldn't ask them to go to the city on days that IBM was not providing transportation. So we are in the city, and the commute is hard too. I will not sugarcoat that. But right now we're in the city Monday, Wednesday, and we're in Armonk Tuesday, Thursday, and work from home Friday. But we'll see, it's a work in progress. And I think once people get more embedded and more comfortable being a lawyer, being at IBM and working in particular sections and really have a strong support network, I think we probably will look at it. We'll continue to look at it and do what makes sense. But being in person is really critical especially for new lawyers, regardless of where you are. I just think having some period of time in person, it doesn't have to be 5 days a week, but right when you're starting, it's just really hard to learn and to build a network and to build trusting relationships, which is such a foundation of being a good lawyer. It's hard to do that remotely.
100%. Yeah, I used to travel from Brooklyn to the middle of New Jersey. So the city travel, I understand, but I definitely agree. Like, meeting in person is so different than being on Zoom or like having a call. But thank you so much for the answers. I really appreciate it. And thank you for this informational session. Really helpful.
Good. I'm glad. Thank you for the feedback.
Hey, Jen, if I could just add one thing on the location, because and I know it's short-term versus long-term, just giving you a perspective of once you come out of this program. I mean, IBM has significant lawyers worldwide, but at least in the US, San Francisco, Chicago, Austin, Raleigh, where I am in Boston, and then sort of in and around New York City, mainly north of New York City. So you have, you think about, where you want to be longer term, also in addition to the sort of face-to-face training. There are lots of opportunities, both geographically and as we're both talking about different areas as I mentioned, 6 or 7 roles I've had, you'll learn a little bit going from one to the other. And some, I would say, I won't go into too much depth, but some I would say when I first sort of agreed to do that next role, because there's somewhat of an ongoing rotation through your career as you're here long enough, like Jen and I, there becomes fewer and fewer things you haven't done. Probably aren't too many, but as you go through, you're going to find some things that you like a lot, maybe you like less, and some might surprise you. And so again, having the ability under one roof to sort of rotate both in the training program, but then once you come out of that training program around IBM, it's known as if your first full-time IBM lawyer job beyond Jen's sphere, it will be your last one. I would say probably 90% certain that it will not be your last one, and that you'll have many other opportunities. And it is opportunities. I can't think of the last time when someone was sort of, this is your next role. It's opportunities based on experience, aspiration, and interest, where we try to keep everyone interested and busy and continue to sort of develop their careers. So I just wanted to add that, Jen, beyond your program, bigger focus IBM on geographic options and working options too.
Yeah, I mean, I started at IBM in Dallas. I moved to Manhattan. I moved to Sao Paulo, Brazil, was there for 3.5 years, and now I'm back in Manhattan. And I've had lots of different, I've had a couple of jobs, except with the exception of Sao Paulo, where I ran the Latin America law department, and that's where our Latin American headquarters are. I've had a couple of different jobs, 2 or 3 different jobs in each of Dallas and New York.
Yeah, and for me, I started in Dutchess County. If you folks know where you're in Albany County, across the river is Rensselaer, Columbia, Dutchess. So I started out in East Fishkill. I spent some time at Poughkeepsie, New York. And Poughkeepsie, the IBM site was just on the news last week. I think when President Biden came to have a speech there. I passed on opportunities in Burlington, Vermont, and Raleigh, North Carolina. I was in New York. Now I'm in Boston. I tried to visit Jen when she was down in Sao Paulo as much as I could when I was traveling, doing deals. So lots of opportunities work-wise and location-wise.
Thank you. That's so wonderful and exciting to hear. I would love to live in Brazil. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have a question in the chat I would like to read. Student, I apologize. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. Is from China, also a PhD student focusing on criminal law in Taiwan. I also have a law bachelor's and master's degree. I also passed the China bar. I'm wondering whether IBM needs an attorney who has an international background.
I think an international background is an incredible asset to have. So yes, and we have one of the lawyers in this initial cohort actually was born in Mexico and has Mexican and US citizenship. And that, I think, having a global perspective and bringing that to bear is definitely an asset. And I would also say it reminds me of one other aspect of the program that I haven't mentioned is mentorship. So I have, I'm passionate about mentorship, whether it's formal or informal. I think it's so critical. And I have been the beneficiary of being both a mentee and a mentor. And I find it to be a very rewarding and helpful from a career advancement standpoint as well. But the new lawyers here, I've matched them up with lawyers outside of the US too. So they have like 4 different sets of mentors. They have the IBM the law department's formal mentoring program, where every lawyer who wants to participate can have a mentor. They have buddies at North Castle in Armonk, the office that we go to on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They are matched up with lawyers outside of the US because, to your question, I think it's especially US lawyers in particular, I think have at this company at least, because it's a New York based big US presence company, we tend to think about the US almost too much, at least maybe initially. And it's really important to realize that we have a lot of business outside of the US, a lot of revenue outside of the US, a lot of challenges outside of the US, and a lot of talent, a lot of really talented people outside of the US. So I have them matched up with lawyers outside of the US, and then I'm also matching them up with some early professional hires on the business side of the house, because I think that's something that's, I mean, can't lose sight of who your client is and who you're working for and what we do. So again, another long question, do I think that IBM would be advantaged by having lawyers with international backgrounds? Absolutely.
Yeah, I would just offer, I mentioned, I think it's 130 countries where we do business. And so we need, legal team members to cover all of that. And I'm just sort of thinking of the roster. We have significant legal presence, just thinking about AP in China, South Korea, Japan, Australia, India. And those are folks, at least again, from my little patch and around the regulatory space that we work with directly. And we have folks, sometimes we hire in those countries, other times we hire, as part of a worldwide team, and there's sort of a foreign assignment there. We have a very talented lawyer who, for the last 2.5 years, timing's not great, the last 2.5 years is based in Shanghai, and he's going to be coming back in March back to my team. So he had an experience work. It was in the sort of the trust and compliance function. He's going to come back to my team. As I mentioned, not great timing to be sort of based in Shanghai with everything that's going on. So he may be sort of happy to come back. Other folks sort of extend it. So international background would certainly be a help. We are regularly on morning calls with the Europeans and evening calls with the team in Asia. And as you would expect with an international company, English isn't the first language of everyone. So just having cultural sensitivities and having some other language skills, all none required, but certainly all helpful, is to sort of build out what you have to offer to IBM. And then on the flip side, what the excitement of what IBM offers. I have yet to come across, and I hire a lot of law firms, yet to have a law firm that can cover the full scope of the issues we deal with or the countries we deal with. So lots of international law firms, but they're really a few countries, maybe get to 10 countries. But for the breadth that we have, we are, as it says in the name, international, but it's very true, also international legal department, which is a nice option.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you both for answering that. Anyone else? Any other questions? Madison?
Hi, good morning. I'd just like to say thank you both for taking the time to speak to us. It's been very informative so far. Aristide brought something up, and I'm in the same boat as him with this. We're both going to be December graduates. I was just wondering, how does being a December graduate and taking the bar in February affect the rotation and initial application process?
It shouldn't, but I mean, it would impact the people who are, at least with this next class, it would impact people like you and Aristide who are December grads, because the next program would not start until after the July bar. I guess in theory, I could interview people and I could find that I have the eight people that I want all have graduated in December of this year. Theoretically, that's possible, I suppose. But I would say you would still have the same level playing field as any other candidate. The issue would be, what would you do from that period of time from February to September? And would that be something that would be tenable for your circumstances, or something that you would want to do? Would you want to find a different position, a short-term position? I'm sure there are lots of different combinations and permutations there of what could potentially happen. But from a candidacy standpoint, you would have the same chances as anyone.
Thank you very much.
Aristide?
I was going to ask something similar earlier, but my question now is, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can now.
Now is you mentioned the class being diverse and IBM being of the legal team.
You cut out for me. Is there a way to maybe type it, the question? So that I heard diverse. That's all I heard.
Yeah, it was in and out, Aristide. You want to try again?
Am I good now?
Oops.
Yeah, I can hear you. You want to try
great.
again?
Yeah, I can. So I know that you mentioned about the diversity of the current class. Can you speak to the diversity of IBM's legal team as a whole and IBM's diversity effort?
Yes, something I'm really proud of, and we actually had just last week, so it's fresh on my memory, that some of the chairs of IBM's Law Department Diversity and Inclusion Committee come speak to everybody. Lots of focus on volunteer efforts throughout the department, and one thing that is, as Dawn was just talking about, it's truly an international department. The diversity issues vary from country to country. So what may be a diversity issue in the United States is not a diversity issue in Japan, and so on and so forth. So what we have, you know, in our we have what is called our performance review is something called checkpoint. And so we do that it just encourages feedback among colleagues and between management and myself and my manager. And so everyone sets their goals at the beginning of the year and then adjusts them as we go through the year. And we always have a diversity and inclusion goal. And so it's something very first and foremost in front of mind. And you can even see it in the history of the company. I mean, IBM has had, I remember when I came to IBM, I had this notion it was going to be just a bunch of white men in blue suits selling things. And that's not the case. And I was very impressed with the history of, you know, IBM hiring women, IBM hiring people with disabilities, IBM hiring people of color way before any of this was required by law. And so IBM is it's very proud of, and it is a reality where you can come to work and bring your full self to work. And I think that probably for me personally speaks the loudest towards IBM's commitment to diversity and inclusion. I don't know, Dawn, if you have other thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't have the stats, but we do pride ourselves across, and this is not just the legal department, but across IBM of our D&I initiatives and trying to have having the legal department and the business reflect sort of mosaic of everyone out there. If I could just sort of, as I think about sitting around our general counsel's table with her leadership, it is a range of backgrounds and skills and talents and strengths and background. So I think it can always do more, but I think we feel, I don't have the stats, but feel pretty good about our worldwide team. And then even for the team in the US and even for our legal department, it's massive. Feel good about that. So we can sort of follow up with the stats, but that's a strength, even though I can't recite the stats.
Okay, thank you so much. Aristide, that answers your question. You're good? Okay. All right. Yes, feel free. You can follow up with any information you'd like. You can direct to me, and I can be sure that it gets to where it needs to go. So, wow, I can't believe that it's been an hour already. So it flew right by. Any other questions? Anything else that anyone wants to address before we wrap things up? I know I have one question, Jen, that we had started talking about was just perhaps if there is a timeline that you would prefer to hear from candidates, I'll be sure to note that on the posting. And if that's not decided yet, and you want to let me know, that's fine. As of right now, I have a November date on there. I just want to make sure that I stay on your timeline.
Yeah, I think that's a good for a starting point.
Okay.
Meg, and I actually right before this meeting, I noticed some emails in my inbox from recruiting. So I know that they're, you know, now that the post went live last week, they're anxious and chomping at the bit, and I'm sure probably even passively recruiting candidates already. So we'll see, but I think that's safe for now, but obviously if we extend it out,
Just let
I'll
us
let you know.
Perfect.
And a huge thank you for Meg for organizing this and making the time, and for all of you on the phone for the engagement, the interesting questions. And if you think of any others, please feel free to reach out to me or to Dawn.
Yes, you're very welcome. Thank you for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. We look forward to sending you some applications, and really appreciate you taking the time. Students, thank you so much for being here today.
Yep. Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.